for the financial year ending 31st March 2027 and the Government of Jamaica Fiscal Policy Paper Fiscal Year 2026-2027, which were all laid on the table of the House on the 12th day of February 2026 to the Standing Finance Committee of the whole House of Representatives, consisting of all the members of the House, for consideration and report. This committee is now ready to start its deliberations, and I ask the leader of the House to inform us how we will proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Let me welcome all the members to our Standing Finance Committee. The technical teams from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service are already seated. We will begin with with the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and Minister Favour Williams and Minister Xavier Main, along with the Financial Secretary, and the rest of the team is here. And then we will move into, after we have taken that head, into the Governor General, Houses of Parliament, and the Office of the Cabinet. We have circulated, Chair, to the various ministers the schedule for the Standing Finance Committee, which will run over the next 2 days. And we do hope, despite the late start, that we will be able to get back on track so that we can finish in good time. With that said, Mr. Speaker, Chairman, after each presentation and the question, then we will have the various heads put, and we will move with that in mind. So with that said, Chairman, we can turn over to the Minister of Finance to take our first head, which relates to the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service.
Before you go, I have two procedural matters to raise. One, the Independent Fiscal Commission would have sent its evaluation of the budget to the Parliament. It's important that that document be formally tabled or presented here. The time period between the tabling of the revenue measures and the estimates is to allow that entity to do its examination. I know it's been in the public domain, but it should be formally tabled here in the Parliament. That's the first. And before the Minister goes into the detail, I noticed circulated were, I believe, some corrections to the estimates of expenditure. So I would just ask at the beginning if you, Minister, could highlight what those changes are before we get into the specific pages.
And just before, I'd like to inquire of the Minister, of the Leader of Government Business, that the agenda, the schedule, as has been circulated, is going to be strictly adhered to, because we are operating on that basis. So there won't be any shifting in that schedule.
Yeah, so the schedule will be strictly adhered to unless something dramatic could have come up. I mean, it has been refined, so this is the final schedule, and all the ministers have been informed. Clearly, time, I'll ensure, I'll just send you so you can double check, but you should. That is the same one, hasn't changed, it's the same one, right? Clearly, we've also set some time, which it would need sort of all our cooperation to ensure that the times, because again, that is the only thing that can make the schedule more difficult, right? So I hope we will keep that in mind. Other than that, the points raised by Member Robinson in relation to the amendments being addressed at the start of the presentation, I don't see a challenge with that, and I'll allow the Minister of Finance to speak to the Fiscal Commission's report when she starts.
I don't think it's for the Minister to speak to it. The Independent Fiscal Commission is a commission of Parliament, and the report would have come to Parliament. So Parliament has a responsibility to table it, not the Minister of Finance.
So, just for confirmation, we're checking to make sure that it was laid on the table of the House, because it has to be laid on the table of the House before it cannot be done here, as advised.
No, but all right, but that defeats the purpose of this exercise. The reason you have a time lag between the estimates and standing finance is to allow that process to take place. If we are not able to see what the independent fiscal commission has done, it defeats part of the purpose of us being here. So my understanding is that the commission would have sent the report to Parliament. If it wasn't yesterday, it may have been Monday, and then Parliament should provide the report for members, even though it may be in the public domain, like I say, it being quoted, but it has to be brought here.
Chairman, thank you. My information is that the report would have been finished probably yesterday or the day before. We have not had Parliament between yesterday and the day before, and we had scheduled standing finance for today. But I'm sure as soon as the Parliament gets custody of the report, then the report will be presented to the Parliament. How else then would it be tabled? How would it be tabled? Would you have preferred we suspend standing finance committee to table it?
I mean, and I'm not going to tell you I'm au fait on all the procedural matters, but an important document of that nature has to be brought here. I mean, while it may be in the public domain through other means, to my certain knowledge, the commissioner would have sent it to Parliament, and the procedure that you may need to employ to ensure it is here, we need to do that. It shouldn't be that members rely on the media or other ways to find out what is in that report.
Well, the IFC shouldn't be out there in the media.
No, I'm not saying it should be in the media, but I've seen it.
But I'm saying the IFC should not have been in the media talking about it before it was laid in Parliament. And that's he shouldn't be out in the media talking about it before Parliament. Yeah. He was in the media.
No, it was an Auditor General.
Yeah, that report was always here.
Here, before we start it. No, how the exact procedure to table it. Huh?
Member, it is unfortunate that you make mention of it being out there in John public domain before it is even tabled here. Understand the situation, so it is not Parliament's fault why it is out there and not yet before us. No, I'm not saying that he's blaming, but there's something has to be wrong if it is out there in the domain and not yet at Parliament to be tabled, because it has to be laid on the table of the House first.
I heard it.
Before it's supposed to be out there. So obviously there is something that is not right.
But has it been received by
I'm
Parliament?
just saying the first thing to query, has the Parliament received the report from the Independent Fiscal Commissioner? And when did the Parliament receive the report? It's a very important procedural point, because that is the body that does an independent assessment of everything we're going through, right?
So, member, we are confirming.
No, nobody you can't say that. You don't know if he has?
We are making sure at what point it was received by the Parliament. So just a minute or so.
So there are a couple matters that have been raised that what I would suggest to the Standing Finance Committee is that, well, let me say a couple of things. One, clearly the Fiscal Commissioner report has to come to the House, right, and has to be tabled in the House. That's different as to whether it needs to be referred to the Standing Finance Committee. I can understand members saying that they would like to be able to take that into account as a part of these deliberations, but that's different than saying that by law we need it for these deliberations. So that's one. Remember, there is a budget process. This is a part of the process, and we still have a budget debate to come, and clearly the House will sit before, and when I say before, the House will have to convene to start the budget debate process. And I'm very certain that once the checks are done, at the once the House is convened and the document is before the House, it will be tabled. I know you wanted to say something, Chair.
Just to confirm that the Parliament received such document on the 3rd of March, and the last sitting was on the 12th of February. So it has not been laid on the table or referred to the committee as.
But Chairman, it's a simple process. The point that has been made is that this document is inextricably tied up with the work that we're doing because it has to fit a fiscal framework. And if that isn't here to guide us, then much of what we're doing here will be meaningless. I think the Parliament can meet anytime to table any document, and it can do so right now. And I'm suggesting that we table the document and thereafter proceed with the work of the Standing Finance Committee, and we'd have solved the problem.
No, that's not.
Mr. Speaker, Chairman, I have never, in the history that I have been observing Parliament, both inside and outside, for over a decade, seen Standing Finance Committee suspended to table a report that is 1 day old. I have never seen it, so I'm suggesting to you that you continue Standing Finance Committee, as was requested by the opposition, that we stay on schedule. The report will be tabled when the Parliament sits, which is the procedure.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
I'm going to say, members, I don't think this should be a controversial issue. You know, this is the first time. No, I am making it because it's the first time that since the commission has been established that the fiscal commissioner has provided a report. It used to be the Auditor General. Or the second time. All right, second time. My apology. If that is so, the procedure to ensure that it is properly here before we sit should be done, because it is a body that provides an assessment on the budget. I don't know why that's being controversial.
so I hear the member, and there's no attempt to be difficult. But again, we kind of have to separate the matters. There is no requirement for the report of the Fiscal Commissioner to be tabled and sent to the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament. The requirement is for the Fiscal Commissioner to do his report and for that report to be tabled. Once that report is tabled, then it is public information, right? So what I'm saying, the challenge that I see the members have is that they want sight of the report and have not had sight of the report.
Website of the Information Commissioner.
So have not had sight. The Minister of Finance is indicating that the Fiscal Commissioner has already made the report public via his website. So therefore, there's no need. Tabling is a different. We can table it when Parliament sits. If you want to review the report, then it's on a public platform, it can be reviewed. We ask that we proceed.
Oh, I thought that was where I got it. No, I think it's okay.
So, Chairman, I had actually suggested to the Deputy Clerk that as the report is here, we don't have to have a formal sitting of the Parliament to table it. Just circulate it now.
Member from West Central St. James.
Minister, we start at 9:30. 9:30 start.
Chairman, The law, the Independent Fiscal Commission Act provides that the report, when the report is submitted to the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate, it shall, as soon as possible, upon receipt, be laid before the House, be tabled. And my understanding is that as soon as possible has not yet arisen.
Next item.
Meaning in respect of the sitting. So while it is important that the report be tabled, and the point made by the member is a valid point, there is no breach of the law. It is unfortunate that it has not been tabled, and the work of the committee is commencing, but it's important for us to know that there is no breach of the law.
Next item. His Excellency. His Excellency.
Minister, that settles it thus. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Let me first introduce the team. To my right, it's my Minister of State, Minister Xavier Main. To my left is Ms. Darlene Morrison, our Financial Secretary. And in the many seats, starting in the second row, are the many team members whose work I commend in putting together the many documents that form a part of this budget here today. And they do this while managing their day-to-day responsibilities in the continued aftermath of the Category 5 Hurricane Melissa. So today, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to be here to present the budget for the new fiscal year 2026-27. Today marks a little over 4 months since the devastation of the Category 5 Hurricane Melissa on October 28, 2025. It is characterized as one of the most powerful storms to ever hit the Atlantic, with sustained winds of 185 miles per hour at landfall. The initial physical infrastructure damage was estimated at US $8.75 billion, representing 41% of our 2024 GDP. The Planning Institute of Jamaica revealed an assessment this week that took into consideration not just the initial physical damage, but added the economic and social damage as well, and has indicated that the loss and damage assessment is now US $12.2 billion, or approximately 57% of our 2024 GDP. Of note, Mr. Chairman, we did not benefit from this updated data before we tabled the budget documents on February 12, 2026, as is required regardless of what else is going on around us. So I'm presenting the fiscal 2026-27 budget within the context of the Category 5 Hurricane Melissa. And additionally, Mr. Chairman, as of Saturday, February 28, 2026, we learned from the global news sources that the United States and Israel launched an attack on the nuclear capabilities of Iran. And in a week, we've seen oil prices go from about $64 per barrel US to $74, an increase of about 16%. As you know, Mr. Chairman, the Middle East produces over 30% of the world's crude oil, making it the world's leading oil-producing region. Additionally, the world's busiest oil shipping lane, the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 20% of global oil and gas passes, has been disrupted. Jamaica is an importer of oil, and so what happens to oil prices on the global market is expected to have an impact on Jamaica. As a government, we have a focus on energy security. Petrojam Refinery is our sole refiner and continues to provide energy security as we continue to expand our energy sources. Let me add as well, Mr. Chairman, on Tuesday, PIOJ presented its estimate of GDP growth for the October to December 2025 quarter relative to the corresponding quarter of 2024. PIOJ estimated that the Jamaican economy contracted by 7.5%, the largest quarterly decline since the July to September 2020 quarter, when the economy was impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. The PIOJ said that the estimated outturn for the October to December quarter in 2025 largely reflects the impact of the Category 5 Hurricane Melissa that caused widespread disruption due to hurricane force winds, storm surge, intense rainfall, flooding, and landslides. Combined, these shocks negatively impacted the performance of all industries, particularly agriculture, forestry and fishing, accommodation and food services activities, transport and storage, electricity, water supply, and waste management. But it must be noted, Mr. Chairman, that the 7.5% contraction in GDP for the October to December 2025 quarter is significantly better than the negative 11% to negative 13% that the PIOJ initially anticipated. This is attributed to the better than anticipated outturn of some industries and the speed with which the apparatus of government got mobilized to clear roads, provide relief food packages, got electricity restored in record time, so that our water sector that depends on electricity could move the water in its pipes. Our telecom sector that also depends on electricity was able to recover in record time. In fact, Mr. Chairman, Major General Smart of SEDEMA, which is Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, lauded Jamaica's resilience and coordinated emergency response. He also commended the government for its leadership in coordinating and driving national response and recovery. So to have a better outturn than was initially predicted, it's not luck, it's not buck up. It's hard work on the part of this government, businesses, and the general Jamaican population. Major General Smart also said, "My commendation must also extend to the government of Jamaica, who, at the end of the day, is responsible for the response and the recovery, and the fact that they have thrown themselves totally into it is an indication of why I say Jamaica will bounce back faster than one expects." With the government's drive and with the support of the people and the various institutions and industries, Jamaica will build itself better than it was before. I have no doubt, he stressed. Mr. Chairman, with that as a backdrop, the central government budget for fiscal year 2026-27 For recurrent and capital spending plus debt servicing, which includes interest payment and debt amortization, is 1,441,781,354,000 Jamaican dollars. Of note, in the recurrent expenditure is 160,590.2 million for debt amortization, which is debt payment, and 210,955.7 million for interest payment or debt service. On the other side of the ledger, Mr. Chairman, the projected revenues and grants for the national budget or the central government's budget is 1,083,532.3 million. This includes the 18 billion of revenue measures and the 11.4 billion from the NHT. These measures were announced on February 12, 2026, when I tabled the fiscal policy papers and budget documents in Parliament. But as you can see in the fiscal policy papers, the expenditure for the new fiscal year far outweighs the revenues. All told, we have a total financing gap of $358.2 billion after taking into consideration the revenue measures of 18 billion and the 11.4 billion from the NHT. The 358.2 billion financing gap will be covered from loan receipts of 247.1 billion, other inflows of 7.2 billion, and use of the government's cash resources of 103.9 billion. Just to note, Mr. Chairman, we are very encouraged with the report from the PIOJ yesterday that highlighted that the anticipated decline in the GDP output in the October to December 2025 quarter was not as bad as was initially thought, coming in at the negative 7.5%. And with that context, Mr. Speaker, I will table some amendments. I'll table some amendments, and I'm sure members would have gotten the attachments by now. So the documents presented in the House of Representatives on the 12th day of February 2026, for which amendments are being tabled, are the following: Estimates of Expenditure 2026-2027, Jamaica Public Bodies Estimate of Revenue and Expenditure for the year ending March 2027, Revenue Estimates for financial year ending 31st March 2027, Public Sector Consolidated Estimates of Expenditure 2026-2027, and Government of Jamaica Fiscal Policy Paper 2026-27. So, Mr. Chairman, the undermentioned amendments to the central government's estimates of expenditure 2026-2027 and the Jamaica Public Bodies estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2027, as well as corrigenda to the fiscal policy paper, fiscal year 2026-27, and the revenue estimates 2026-27 are being tabled for consideration and approval of the Standing Finance Committee. Item 1 would be the amendments to the central government expenditure of estimates of expenditure 2026-27 as follows. And the document, this one, looks like this. The documents that you should have At the top, it says Finance Committee Amendment, Estimates of Expenditure 2026, 2027, Summary. The
Minister.
document,
Would you want to speak directly into the mic, because some of the members having difficulty?
So members, the document that you should have at the top, it's called Finance Committee Amendment, Estimates of Expenditure 2026, 2027 Summary. And just so you could follow, the page number is at the top right-hand corner. There are 6 pages, and the first page is numbered page 1 of 6. So the amendments, the first amendment is the amendments to the central government estimate of expenditure 2026-27, and they are as follows. On page 2 of the amended document, an additional $2 billion is being proposed for head 16,000, which is the Office of the Cabinet, under activity 1005, which is direction and administration, to facilitate the establishment and operation of the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARO, currently being created. Page 3 of the amendment document, $1.66 billion are being proposed for transfer from head 20,000, which is the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, activity 10,099, contingencies, and this will go to head 42,000, which is the Ministry of Health and Wellness, to fund phase 2 of the Ministry of Health and Wellness's Hurricane Melissa Relief and Recovery Program. On page 4 of the amendment document, a total of $20 billion are being proposed for transfer from the $30 billion allocated for the contingency provision for Hurricane Melissa reconstruction / restoration under head 20,000C, which is the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service Capital. This is to facilitate spending related to Hurricane Melissa, reconstruction, restoration activities in the Office of the Cabinet and the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. A balance of $10 billion will remain in the contingency for Hurricane Melissa reconstruction / restoration. On page 5 of the amendment document, an additional $18 billion are being proposed for head 41,000, which is the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, to facilitate the continued refurbishment and restoration of schools and regional offices damaged by Hurricane Melissa. Page 6 of the amendment document, an additional $1.66 billion is proposed for head 42,000, which is the Ministry of Health and Wellness, to facilitate implementation of phase 2 of that ministry's Hurricane Melissa Relief and Recovery Program. All right, members, if you go back to page 1 of the amendment document, which is a summary of the amendment, as reflected in the summary on page 1 of the document, these adjustments will not change the overall central government expenditure budget. However, the recurrent provision will reflect an increase of $20 billion and the capital provision a commensurate reduction of $20 billion. Amendments to Jamaica Public Bodies estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2027. The amendments proposed are as follows. On page 33 of the estimates, Factories Corporation of Jamaica. The last two lines of the income statement should be deleted. That's in the public bodies book. Huh? Oh, yeah. Did I have these? Yeah. You have them. They're there. You have them. Yeah. It looks like that. It looks like that. This is mine. Yeah. All right. So if you look in the public bodies book and you look at page 33 in that book, Factories Corporation of Jamaica, at the bottom of their income statement, two lines were repeated. So we are deleting those two lines because it's the same information. All right. And then on page 157 of the estimates, Jamaican Urban Transit Company, the last line of the narrative on this page should be amended to read, the company is projecting a staff complement of 2,134 relative to the 1,695 for 25-26 that was stated. So instead of 1,695, it should be 2,134. This follows the provision of updated information by the JUTC. These adjustments will not materially change the estimates. Also being tabled are corrigenda to the fiscal policy paper, fiscal year 2026-27, the revenue estimates 2026-27, and the public sector consolidated estimates of expenditure 2026-27. The changes reflected in these documents primarily arise from those just outlined for the central government estimates of expenditure. And that is it, Mr. Chair, in terms of the amendments. And we can now move to questions as per the agenda.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just seeking clarification on the amendments you made, and I just want to ensure I heard you correctly. The sums that are being transferred for the hurricane relief, are those that were in the contingency on the capital side or the contingency on the recurrent side, the capital side?
On the capital side.
So we would, in effect, be reducing the capital budget by the order of these transfers. Since you have brought these issues here, can I ask, in relation to NARO, could you indicate when you anticipate NARO to be operational and what structure NARO will have? Will it be the equivalent of a public body? What would be the framework that underpins how NARO operates?
Timeline.
And the timeline, yeah.
Currently, I know that the technical team is hard at work to get NARO up and running. It will be a statutory body with all the laws and regulations surrounding statutory bodies. So that, as we speak, is in train. You know that legislation would have to be brought to Parliament to get that set up. So that will be the first order of the day.
So could you give a time frame? Are we talking first quarter, next fiscal year, second quarter? Give an estimate as to when you think it will be operational.
All right, so as indicated, member, quite a bit of work is going on. We have to get the legislative work done first. Once that is done, people have to be hired on. I know already the Prime Minister has his list of projects that he's prioritizing to get done. These will be large projects that will be done through this entity. So there is some work done, but the team is moving swiftly to get it done.
I appreciate the work being done, and I know everybody's working quickly, but is it that you're unable to estimate a time frame at this point in time? And can you come back to us and say to us by the close of play that you think by second quarter of the fiscal year it will be up and operating? That's what I'm asking specifically. Appreciating that everybody's working, everybody's moving quickly. I'm just asking for a time frame.
Okay. So, member, there are still matters being discussed in cabinet. As soon as we have all the approvals from cabinet, I am sure the Prime Minister will speak to exactly the time frame for the establishment and the operations of this entity.
All right, let me move on. In January of this year, the government announced a financing package of $6.7 billion US dollars, or approximately just over 1 trillion Jamaican dollars from various international financial institutions. Can you provide details of the facilities which have been provided by the specific institutions and what the government has accessed thus far and what the government intends to access during the upcoming 26-27 fiscal year?
All right. So, member, you're correct. 6.7 billion was announced as the financing package. 6.7 billion US dollars as the financing package that would be available to Jamaica. But in order to understand that, you have to break it down. 1 billion of that consisted of funds that were already, considered for the government. 1 billion included things like the catastrophe bond, the funds that we got from CCRIF or regional insurance company, catastrophe risk insurance company, the NNDRF, which is the National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund, the contingency fund, the IMF's IDB and World Bank instruments. So that was in that $1 billion.
And that 1 billion would have been accounted for in fiscal year, the current fiscal year,
most of
in
it,
terms of
most
receipts.
Most of it.
Okay.
Right. But also I'm saying as well, so if you take that billion off, it leaves 5.7 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then 2.4 billion of that is earmarked for private sector investments together with government. So we'll be down to $3.2 billion, and those will be the kinds of, those will go to funding the projects that a NARO would coordinate and oversee over some period of time.
So would that then be reflected in the allocations that you are making to NARO, and you anticipate that those would be drawn down and spent for 26-27?
Right. So some of the allocation would be reflected there, but it would be for the preliminary pre-investment work that needs to be done on these projects. As you can imagine, when you have large projects.
Minister, my colleagues asking you to speak a little more into the mic. Yeah.
Some of it is reflected there. as I was saying, as you can imagine, when you have large projects, there's a lot of pre-investment work that has to go on. And by pre-investment, we mean the scoping out, the design, whatever architectural work needs to be done, environmental work, and so on. So there is some allocation for that type of work. Right, so there's 10 billion there to ensure that that component of the work will go on in this fiscal year.
In 26, in 26, 27.
27, upcoming fiscal year.
All right, so the 2.4 billion US in funding for private sector projects, that would be dependent on projects that are presented to, for example, like an IFC as an example, the private sector arm of the World Bank. So if individuals present projects, that money is available. Is that what you're saying? It's not
Right, so-
funding for central government
Right,
at
so
all?
the IFC, the IDB invests those arms. However, those investments will be coordinated with government as well, because government also will have significantly large projects that the private sector can take on.
Okay, so you anticipate those being PPPs that are in the pipeline that would be accessed?
Right, there are some in the pipeline.
Okay. All right. In terms of you alluded in your opening remarks to the situation in the Middle East and the impact that is likely to have on the economy. You indicated the movement in oil prices. It has two effects. It will have a balance of payment effect, but also you will collect some more tax revenues from GCTs and STCs. What contingencies are in place to deal with the likely impact of inflation from the increases in oil prices, particularly on those who are most vulnerable?
All right, so the war that started, it's in its first week. The impact we would begin to be very concerned about the impact depending on how long
Sure.
the war goes on. In the near term, we will see the first effect of it through oil prices here in Jamaica. We expect consumers in the near term to manage their budgets accordingly. Again, it's going to depend the longer term impact of it and whether or not government will be required to assist will depend on the duration of this war that's happening in the Middle East. So it's something that we're watching closely. And of course, if government is required to assist, that is something that the cabinet will deliberate on, and then there will be an announcement to the country.
All right. In terms of your projections, and I noted the financial secretary in response to a question from the opposition leader indicated that the inflation rate figure for 25-26 was revised downwards from 10% to, I believe, 5.6. You have projected a nominal GDP growth of 9.2% for 26-27 and a real growth of negative 0.5%, which assumes a deflator of 9.7%. Given the downward revision in inflation, does that deflator, do you believe that that deflator is still accurate and will still hold? Because inflation has moderated relative to the original expectations.
All right. It's interesting that you should narrow in on that because that is the contention of the fiscal commissioner, that our inflation numbers were too high and he pointed out the risk of that. So it's interesting now that we are being asked, why do we take that down to 5.6%? Well, let me say, at the time of the estimate of the 10%, you have to go back to December, January, when these numbers were being put together. You know, in the environment in which we were at that time, food prices were up significantly. You recall the price of green pepper and other items were just off the charts. So it was not unreasonable at the time to have estimated inflation of that magnitude. We have since seen in new inflation numbers, they've moderated quite a bit. And so we've gone back and made the reduction in that early number to reflect the new data that became available to us.
I totally understand that. I'm now going further to ask whether you believe the assumption of the deflator of 9.7% for 26-27, given the moderation of inflation, is still a number that you believe would hold, because you have almost the outturn of inflation has almost been just over half of what the projection was. The 9.7 deflator assumes built in probably a larger than real inflation number. So I'm saying with the moderation and accepting now with the Middle East conflict that there are uncertainties. But I'm just asking if you still believe that 9.7 deflator will hold.
We're expecting that to be lower.
Right, that's what I would anticipate, yeah.
But then it's a dynamic situation.
Right, because I said the war could, yes, I'm accepting that, yeah. Can I shift a little to your wages and the provision for wages and salaries? You have a contingency of 42 billion that has been provided in the overall figure of 555 billion. Can you give a breakdown of what you anticipate the 42 billion to cover? Would it cover, for example, a provision for a potential IDT award coming out of the issue with the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, as an example? Does it include the agreement of the commitment of a 2% increase that was made last year, or a commitment that was said last year, but I don't know whether that would be paid in the upcoming fiscal year. So I'm asking for what the 42 billion would cover in terms of the contingencies for wages and salary negotiations.
Member, as you correctly identified, the 42 billion that has been provided in the budget for wages and salaries anticipate that there will be a settlement in this new fiscal year, and we have to make provision for that, whether or not it happens.
Settlement of which one specifically? The JMDA IDT one, I know, and there may be others. Which specific ones?
For the government wage offer that's on the table. At least we had to create space for that in the budget. We don't, with regards to the IDT awards, we don't know where those will come out at yet. We have other contingencies in the budget from which we could draw from, but given that we know what is the offer from government, we're able to estimate how much that is and put that in the budget.
One of the issues raised by the Fiscal Commissioner relates to the misalignment of the negotiating cycle between the unions and the government in preparation for the budget. I know for 25-26, the unions would have presented their claims in about November of 2024 in anticipation of the new fiscal year. But it has taken the government much longer than anticipated to conclude those negotiations, which means you keep having to carry relatively large contingencies because you don't have an accurate figure of what your commitments are going to be. Can you commit that going forward for the next fiscal year that the negotiation cycle will align with the budgetary cycle so that in preparation for the budget you will have an idea of what your commitments are on the wages and salary side?
Okay, so the alignment with the budget will be, it's not just the government. The government can't just decree that wage negotiations align with the budget. You know how negotiations work. Two sides come to the table. This side says, I have A. The other side says, I want A plus, whatever that plus is. And it takes a while to negotiate, to come back to the table, to leave, come back again. And the two sides have to meet. Yes, I understand what the fiscal commissioner is calling for. It's calling for certainty in the budget. But that's why we have contingencies in the budget, because there are always uncertainties in the budget. Of course, government would love to settle with the unions. That goes without saying, but it takes two. It's not just the government. Government cannot decree a wage settlement. We have to sit at the table with the unions as many times as required for us to get to an agreement, and that's how it is. We could walk into Parliament and we could legislate, but in reality, the process is what determines the cycle of the wage negotiation. But I fully understand where the fiscal commissioner is coming from and just the risk to the budget when you have the wage negotiation outstanding without any idea of when it will be concluded.
All right. I want to shift to your revenue measures, and in particular the environmental levy, the increase in the environmental levy, and the movement of the levy from 75% to 100% of sales. This measure will place local manufacturers at a competitive disadvantage vis-a-vis those who import products. And it could be the exact same product. The importer would pay the levy on the imported inputs, whereas the local manufacturer pays 100% on the value of sales. So there is if you want to call it an unintended consequence, where the local manufacturer is placed at a disadvantage relative to the importer. Have you recognized that, and do you intend to address that anomaly or that deficiency in how the tax measure was proposed?
In short, member, my technical person, just from listening to your question, has indicated that that is not the case in terms of the domestic and the importer being on an uneven playing ground. That is not the case.
Meaning, you're saying it's not the case. So the importer pays on inputs, but the manufacturer pays on total sales. That's not the case?
All right. Member, thank you for raising that question. We've heard it from the manufacturers as well. And as you can see, it's a technical issue. My understanding is that for the manufacturer, the 75% is on sales, whereas the importer, it is on CIF, which is the landed cost, but in that landed cost, there is a markup as well. But just to say, though, that we met with the industry yesterday to hear from them, and this is one that we will put some numbers to, because we do not believe that there is a disadvantage to the manufacturers versus the importer. So we will do that, and we will continue our conversations with the industry.
The other revenue measure, the SCT on sweetened beverages, in particular for those producers who produce both for the domestic market and the export market, the tax applies for domestic production and consumption and for importation. But many of the manufacturers would have one production system. Given this imposition, it would necessitate someone who is producing the same product both locally and for export to, I suppose, manage separately those from an accounting perspective, how they treat with exports versus those for the domestic market for the same product. And from a financial management perspective, it's just an additional burden which the manufacturers would have to take on to separate what they are going to export from what they would do for domestic production.
And the question is?
No, well, it's more a statement of the added, if you want to call it burden, that would be placed on those manufacturers when they have to make that distinction. So it's really not a question. But I'll pause here, and if my colleagues have other questions that they wish to ask the minister.
Member from Northwestern, St. Catherine.
Thank you, Chairman. I bring greetings to the minister as well from her friends and relatives in Ty Dixon.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Minister, I'd like to start with some of the revenue measures, in particular sweetened beverage. What's the actual estimated consumption for the year 23-24? and 24-25 that was used as the base for your projections?
All right, so we used 17.3 million cases in 2020. And notice I said cases, so you multiply that by an average of 24 bottles or cans. And
Put it on calculator for me now.
all right, sorry. Okay, so those numbers I'm told were just for carbonated beverage. What we used in our estimate, roughly 40 million cases.
40 million. Minister, the taxes in milliliter, and you know they're varied sizes. Would you have a milliliter amount?
You mean for the totality of it?
Yes, Minister.
It's over 500 billion milliliters.
Is that within the range of 500 billion or 700 billion? Over has a wide gap. Is it approximately 500 billion?
Right, approximately 500 billion milliliters.
Okay, well, Minister, you estimate a earning of $10.1 billion at 2 cents per milliliter. Would you confirm, therefore, that you expect no reduction in the consumption of that sugary drink, being that that would equate to 500 billion as well, milliliters?
Are you talking about
Consumption.
Are you talking about the 10.1 billion?
Yes, Minister. The levy of 2 cents.
All right. So here's the thing. One, these are estimates. Two, persons could decide that they want to drink less of the sugary drinks, and we see a reduction in that number.
Yes.
Right? That's a good thing from a health perspective. Persons could also decide that they will drink more, and we get the revenues that we estimate or more. Right, if they drink more, estimates, right, or more, right? So, member, based on the data from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, they have been tracking non-communicable diseases for a while now, and they know with great certainty the negative impact of sugar, excess sugar, on the population of Jamaica. So if we get more than is estimated, that extra goes into the health sector to take care of those people when they land there, because they're going to show up with elevated levels, they're going to show up complaining of all kinds of ailments as a result of drinking excess sugary drink. So either way, Minister, either way, Chairman, whether it's 10.1 billion or more than 10 or less than 10, the health sector will have to take care of those who drink too much, and it will benefit from those who change their behavior and consume less.
Minister, unfortunately, I didn't get a response to my question. It was indicated that your base zero this year was 500 billion milliliters. Your best case projection or your most likely case projection suggests that at 2 cents, you will earn 10.1 billion, indicating therefore you expect no decrease in the consumption of the sugary drink, because it would take 500 billion times 2 cents to be 10.1 billion. All right.
All right. So member,
Yes.
I can say that the 10.1 billion had took into consideration, some amount of reduction in the consumption of the beverage.
So your previous figure of 500 billion would have been incorrect then. Your base figure you're
Well, I
saying.
told you approximately, and in fact, I just got confirmation that we used 533 billion, and that we looked at the experience in other countries that have instituted the tax to see what what the behavior was of their consumers.
All right. Minister, would you accept that at 500 billion milliliters, which is what your revenues project, that's equivalent to 400 bottles for every Jamaican soda per year?
Well, thank you for that calculation. That suggests that each person drinks a little more than one per day. And that's why the Ministry of Health and Wellness is seeing the explosion that it is in terms of diabetes and other sugar-related illnesses.
All right, thank you, Minister.
So it is it's a real concern.
Yes, all right. Minister, have the ministry conducted a distributional incident analysis to see which section of the society will be most affected by this tax?
I've heard the concern that this will impact poor people the most. The tax will impact poor people the most. I would have to ask the Ministry of Health and Wellness, based on the experience with those who show up at the hospital, if that is the same population that's showing up. Obviously, we want everybody to be, to reduce their sugar intake, because we know it's not guessing and spelling about the impact of sugar on health. There's no guess and spell about that. The data is there.
Chairman, unfortunately, the minister is not answering my question.
What is your question, member?
There's an economic activity called a distributional impact assessment that is seeking to see any policies impact on the different quintiles within the society. Was such a study done, and what was the result of that study? That will confirm or deny if it is impacting the poor the most.
We take our data from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. They have incontrovertible data on the impact of sugar on the health of Jamaicans. Given the population that goes to our hospitals, it is clear that those people who are drinking more of the sugary beverage are the ones ending up in the health facilities. Member, we
Aye.
want the behavior of persons to change.
But your
Right, we
projections
want
don't
them-
suggest that you'd be successful. Minister, when we look at some figures here, and I understand that the tax is at source. At source, bag juice, $16, the tax would increase it by 31%. At source, Starbucks mocha, $329, the tax would increase it at 2%. Red Bull Tropical, $2.93, the tax would increase it at 1.7%. Welch's sparkling wine, the tax, and this wine doesn't include alcohol, the tax would increase it at 1.6%. And the crushed peach, which is a juice imported for $841, the tax will increase it at 0.84%. No, you're not at this seat. You can answer when you get there. So, therefore, Minister, the bag juice tax is 31% just based on the quantity, as versus the Starbucks tax at 2.4. Can I have some protection, Chairman? Can I have some protection? So, Minister, would you agree that the choice of a quantity per milliliter tax disproportionately impacts cheaper beverages? Can I have some protection, Chairman? Oh, is there for? Okay.
What Starbucks does? Starbucks does though.
Probably. Most likely. Yes, protection.
So, member, I don't believe you're arguing for the poor and needy among us to continue to drink, the high sugar juices, the high sugar beverages. That's what you're arguing
And
for.
Minister,
And
outstanding
we
finance-
are, yes,
Minister,
we
outstanding
are.
finance minister, it is actually not the place to come and defend government policy. Policy set by the government at standing finance. We discuss the numbers in the budget. That is what
No.
that
She's bringing policy
she is so minister. Anyways, Minister, don't look over there, Minister. Minister, when the Minister of Finance come, the Minister can answer in detail the numbers he has for health. Members, when the Minister of Health comes, the Minister of Health can go into details, his numbers, the numbers. Minister.
Minister, Chairman. Can I intervene on your ruling, Chairman?
Member Crawford, please.
Chairman. All right, Chairman, can I move on? I think the point has been made. Yes.
Member
Chairman.
Crawford, thank you for taking the point, and I'm hoping the remainder of the House takes a point, because it has to be that the questions we ask.
Chairman.
It's just
Sorry.
a general statement, Member Crawford.
Yes.
The questions that we ask have to be in respect of the budget numbers that
And the basis of the budget.
we have. If you want to delve deeper into a discussion of the numbers, then you would have to wait until the respective line minister come to go very deep in those numbers.
No, Chairman. Chairman, if I may, can I just intervene? Can I just say something, Chairman?
I was listening to standing finance, though.
Yes.
I wasn't sitting in the chair.
Yes.
So that's why I came in.
Can I have a chance?
No, hold on. I was listening to standing finance.
Yes.
So I'm not.
Can I?
One chair to the next. I was in the office. So from one chair to the next, it flows just the same.
Can I say something, Chairman?
So, Member Crawford, you're not the only one I'm speaking to, you know, so I'm going to allow you to continue, right? So I'm saying to you, in order for you to go through, and I know we want to go through in very detailed level the numbers in the budget this year.
Yes.
We want to take the approach, once the Minister of Finance answer in a general way, particularly in respect of information that you would want to delve more deeply into with the minister in question, we move on, because if not, we are going to be here repeating ad nauseum.
Can I say something,
ahead,
Chairman?
Member Crawford.
And I'm saying something to express caution on the direction that you're seeking to go. In this book tabled by the Minister of Finance, the revenue measures for the financial year, the minister has a figure for total revenue. That total revenue is dependent on the tax times quantity, or some would say price times quantity. It therefore is well within the permit to question the quantities that were used to arrive at the total revenue. The minister has intervened to suggest that the policy was going to be beneficial either way. I never asked her about that policy. I asked her on what basis did she arrive at the quantities that carried the revenues to our understanding and analysis. But I will move on, Chairman. Yes.
No, Mr. Minister.
I apologize, but I changed.
Please refer to the minister as the minister. So, Minister.
I immediately said minister. I apologize if she was, but
Minister.
No. That was not the intent at all. Minister, can I continue?
Minister, so are you comfortable with the response so far, Member Crawford, in respect of the revenue? You're comfortable with the response in respect of how the revenue estimates were arrived at?
Yes.
You are.
I'm comfortable that the quantities were suggested to be relatively the same as last year. I'm comfortable.
Same as last year.
All right.
So, Minister, I will allow the member to move to his next question.
Yes. All right. I'm not sure how this will be perceived, but did the ministry consider nutritional exemptions for items such as cherry milk, chocolate milk, etc.?
Going back to policy here, member?
Yeah, but well, if those were removed, the quantities would have been affected. If they were not removed, the quantities would not have been affected.
Member,
so the total revenue.
I don't know that we should be getting that detail in the policy of exactly which items are in the revenues at this stage.
I think that you're incorrect on the matter, Minister, but let's move on. So the answer has been given.
Member, we have some milk-based products that are exempted, and these will be itemized in the technical document that will be published.
Okay, so a future document will indicate that some nutritional products with sugar input have been exempted. Well, everybody's answering for the minister and contrary to the minister. The minister indicated that there are some milk products that would have been removed. All right. Well, I got two different answers. Chairman, my colleagues
Minister.
have indicated that they are interested.
Minister, I'm not sure what your colleagues have indicated. Minister, you heard the question?
I answered the question.
Did you answer the question?
I answered the question.
Next question, member.
I said there are some milk-based products that will be exempted and that there will be a technical document that will be published
thank you, Minister.
itemizing
Thank you,
these.
thank you, thank
That's
you.
exactly what I said.
No, is your side uninformed and was contradicting you, Minister? I was defending you. Further revenue measures, Minister, digital service tax. Now, having considered the impact of substitution services such as WhatsApp and the functionality of the Universal Service Fund, will a portion of the digital service tax be ring-fenced for the Universal Service Fund?
Remember, we have a consolidated budget that over the years we have been bringing more and more into it from the fragmented segments of the government that was prevalent during your administration. We, whatever we collect in the consolidated fund, we look across all ministries, departments, and agencies. We take into consideration their budget when we put out the budget call and we put out the budget ceiling. We take all of that into consideration. So we try not to earmark monies because during the course of any fiscal year, there could be a need in one ministry relative to another, and so you have the flexibility when you manage a consolidated budget to be able to allocate where the needs are. So we will not be earmarking for USF in particular, but USF's budget will be considered during the budget process as it has been over the past several years.
Reasonable. Thank you, Minister. Now let's look at some of your growth protections. What's the revenue elasticity in respect to GDP growth that you embedded in the medium-term fiscal framework, the fiscal policy paper? What's the revenue elasticity? So if we miss growth by 1%, what would be the impact on revenue?
All right. So when we're projecting tax revenues, remember we look at buoyancy, not elasticity. There's a difference. Our revenues are predicated on our projections for GDP, and we have, from a macro perspective, we know that in general, 25 to 27% of our tax revenues, 25 to 27% of GDP is generally where our tax revenues are. Of course, that's not the only factor that we use to project the revenues. We look at tax revenues from a micro perspective as well, in terms of all the tax types, and we do the projections that way. Then we calibrate the macro with the micro to come to some, studied understanding of what the revenues are going to be. So it's not an elasticity calculation per se. We know there's buoyancy if GDP grows more than what we're projecting, then we would fully expect to see more tax revenues.
Thank you, Minister. But I think the response is unfortunate because the GDP is dependent on the rate of growth. And so if the revenue is dependent on the GDP, then the revenue, therefore, is also dependent on the rate of growth. If there's a particular rate of growth, there will be a different revenue. So I'm saying that, especially based on the simple fact that within the fiscal policy paper, you suggested that your growth was skewed to the downside. So a 1% reduction in growth, how would that impact revenue? Was no stress test done to see a growth impact on revenue outcomes?
So remember, I just described to you the process that we use to estimate the tax revenues. It's a robust process. If you look back in time and if you look at the historical outturn of it, it mirrors what was generally estimated. Obviously, in times of stress, as we've seen, like in Melissa, on other hurricanes, that would throw those projections off course, and we have to come back to Parliament with adjustments on that. But I can assure you, member, that there's a very robust process to get to our revenue projections, again predicated on our growth, on our GDP estimates, and just a detailed look and estimation of all the tax types for which we collect taxes. And that's how we do it, and that's the answer that I'm giving you today.
All right, Minister. Minister, the growth percentage that was in the fiscal policy paper, averaging about 1.5% per year over the next 4 years, it indicated that it assumed a rebound in tourism. What is the level of tourism activity that it is expecting for this growth to be achieved?
So, member, with regards to the tourism sector, I would ask you to pose your questions as well to the Minister of Tourism when he comes, but just to say from a revenue perspective, in terms of the planning, there is good coordination between us and tourism. And what we have as the underlying assumption is that there is a phased reopening of the sector. We expect to see full recovery by the end of the upcoming fiscal year. And so the assumption that is in the budget for tourism growth is over the fiscal year would be 3%. About 7-8 as it ramps up, 7 to 8% as it ramps up.
78%.
As it ramps up, 7 to 8%.
7 to 8%.
As it ramps up, as it recovers.
But Minister, if one goes to page 1706, the projection for 2025-26 tourism is that tourism should actually see a reduction in earnings, moving from 3 billion to 2.9 billion. So the fiscal paper is suggesting tourism rebound, but the budget is suggesting earnings reduction. All
right. So again, member, I'd love for you to pose your questions. to the Minister of Tourism, but suffice it to say, when you look in the big yellow book, which is the estimates of expenditure, you will not be able to compare year on year.
17,008.
Right? You won't be able to compare because every ministry got one-off allocation to deal with the hurricane, and that one-off allocation is not repeated in the upcoming fiscal year. So you may look at the ministry and you see that their numbers for fiscal year, the new fiscal year is lower than what it is for this fiscal year that we're ending. You would have to know what the one-off is in this year, this fiscal year that we're in, what the one-off is in order to compare those numbers and to be able to say whether they've gotten an increased budget or a reduced budget.
Minister, unfortunately, I'm not speaking to expenditure. I'm speaking to the subheading which states, and I quote, estimated growth earnings from the industry financial year 26-27 are projected at 2.97 billion, corresponding with visitor arrivals of 3.41 million, stopover arrivals of 1.94 and cruise arrivals of 1.46. Gross earnings for 2025-2026 was estimated at 3.07 billion. So therefore, what this is suggesting is that tourism earnings was greater in 25-26 and would reduce in 26-27. Yet, the fiscal policy paper is suggesting that the rebound in tourism is a basis of our growth. These two things don't reconcile, Minister.
So, member, again, I'd love for you to pose your questions to the Ministry of Tourism. When we do our estimates, it's at a point in time. We take into consideration all the information that we have at that point in order to help with our calculation. So I would direct you to the Ministry and Minister of Tourism with your question.
But Minister, don't...
Member, we won't belay this point. Minister, while we are going with additional questions, I would ask that the FS just take a look at the statement being made by the member in respect of the revenue estimates and the apparent contradictory statement being made by the budget documents in respect of revenue vis-a-vis the fiscal policy paper, and see if you can come back to responding to that question.
Okay. So
member,
the page
next
17,
question.
So, but I'll give the page 1708. I'll give the
No, and what page on the fiscal policy paper?
17,008.
Fiscal policy paper page.
I will find the exact page of the fiscal policy paper, which mentioned estimated growth dependent on tourism and manufacturing rebound, as well as...
Because I'm going to just double check the paper, and I guess the ministry will need to do the same to determine if the figure stated in fiscal policy paper is an estimate, as it states there, or if it is our final number for the previous fiscal year.
Chairman,
so let's go to the next question and then we come back to that.
To something more specific to the minister. As it relates to tourism activity, there's a projected future tax on tourism activity. Minister, I think the minister is still looking at the last question. But there's a suggested tax on tourism activity. That tourism activity, what does that include, if you may indicate some of the things to include? And specifically, does it include cruise activity? Does it include Airbnb? What does that tourism activity?
Tourism activity as defined in the legislation.
Can you indicate to me? I've not seen that legislation. Would it include Airbnb? Would it include cruise activity?
You have to go to the legislation.
No, Chairman, with due respect, there's a tax here for tourism activity. that has a revenue projection coming from the minister. If this is only on visitor arrival, that is a different thing for stopovers as versus for cruise. If this is only for JTB registered, that's a different quantity as versus for Airbnb. So therefore, it is reasonable for us to ask the current minister what is included in tourism activity, because the header for the tax, Member Brown, is tourism activity. Lend me a pink book. Pink book, revenue. When you sit here,
But I've given him the answer, right, as defined in the act.
all right, so therefore, the JTB Act, does the JTB Act, to your knowledge, include cruise ship persons in tourism activity? Does it include tour and tour activity in tourism activities? Does it include Airbnb in tourism activities? This is a reasonable question. 30% of the arrivals are suggested to go to Airbnbs. Is that a part of your income estimation? She has not, and you're not sitting there.
Members, Minister,
May I lose me the part of it? What? Okay.
Minister,
Yeah.
it is not possible for the minister to search for every single thing in here. For some of the
No,
for some of the things, it will take some time. So, Minister,
right.
the member would like you to pull the act and read it for him.
All right, I'll get back to that question then.
So, member, would any member can pull the act so that we can read exactly what is stated there. It's not reasonable to ask the minister to remember all of it. So, pull in the interim.
All right. Minister.
Go ahead, member.
Well, Minister, my next question is a follow-up.
All right, well, hold it until we pull
All right,
the
so I'll
act.
skip that and come back to it. All right.
All right, member, if you look at the General Consumption Tax Act, tourism activities consisting of supplying the services of a hotel or resort cottage, a site or other facilities for
I'm not
camping,
hearing at all.
tourist accommodation not specified in paragraph A, B, or C, water sports and attraction, a tour operator pursuant to a license issued under the Tourist Board Act.
So does that include cruise and Airbnb? Because I wasn't hearing the reading. Does that include cruise ship and Airbnb?
Remember, I will read again exactly what is in the General Consumption Tax
Yes,
Act.
please.
And it says, tourism activities consisting of supplying the services of A, a hotel, B, a resort cottage, C, a site or other facilities for camping, D, tourism accommodation not specified in paragraph A, B, or C, E, water sports, F, an attraction, G, a tour operator pursuant to a license issued under the Tourist Board Act.
Okay. That would include cruise tourism. How do you expect to collect the tax on the persons on a cruise? Only those who disembark, or would it include all persons? What's the basis of that collection? You're looking at job over there and it's not going to work.
Okay. All right. So, member, what you need to understand is that on these services that I've listed, the GCT rate on them is 10%.
Okay.
No other industry has that rate. and we are equalizing the rate to the standard 15% GCT.
All right, I'll move on, Minister. I didn't question the rate. I questioned who's included. But okay. Minister, to what extent is the projected growth contingent on full utilization of the capital budget?
So, of course, we would expect that some of the GDP growth would be supported by the capital spending that we do. But just want to point out to members that in these capital projects that we do, remember that we have to import quite a bit. We have to import quite a bit in terms of the inputs into these capital projects. So while we do expect growth to come from these projects, we know that, for instance, what NARO is going to be doing in the upcoming fiscal year, it will be engaged in pre-investment, meaning working on the plans for the reconstruction, ensuring that people are in place and so on. So in this first upcoming new fiscal year, you will not necessarily see a significant impact from it because of all the startup work that needs to be done. But as it gathers momentum, you will begin to see more and more of it, of the big capital works reflected in the GDP growth.
But the capacity to execute, Minister, would have reasonably been assessed in this particular year's budget, for which there is a extensive capital budget. Having missed it last year by 37%, I'm asking, to what extent does the full utilization of the capital budget impact your growth projections in the fiscal policy paper?
All right. So there's an expectation that we will be engaging more capacity as we look out into the medium term. From here on into the medium term, we will be looking at just engaging more capacity in order to help us to spend the capital figures, the budget that's there.
Chairman, before the leader of government business continue to peruse the standing orders, I'd like to inform him that the fiscal policy paper is indeed a part of the conversation in this budget.
Why do you need to remind the House leader of any such
So I
thing?
see him studying, Minister.
No, he's not studying a thing.
I see him studying.
When you're fast, I want to know what the conversation
Just
is.
4 questions to go, Minister, and I'll move on.
Focus on your question.
Just 4 questions.
Thank you.
No. The medium-term debt strategy and the fiscal policy paper overtly speaks to crowding out private sector borrowing and private sector investment. Can the minister indicate exactly what systems are in place to monitor and manage that activity?
Sorry, what activity?
Crowding out of private sector borrowing. I think it indicated 60% of the debt would have been through local, I don't want to misquote, but it indicated overtly the risk of crowding out private sector borrowing.
So as we put together the various budget documents, we have to consider just all aspects of it, and we have to state it in the book for completeness. We have not seen that phenomenon in the local market. If anything, there is a significant appetite for government debt in the local market. But again, we have to state the pluses and minuses, the risk and the rewards when we put out these publications, so that it gives you a rounded picture and it lets you know that we are considering not just the optimistic side, but we consider as well the not so optimistic scenario.
All right, Minister. Does this budget have a allocation for a renewal of the catastrophe bond?
Yes, there is an allocation in there.
And what is the targeted coverage for that catastrophe
We
bond?
cannot say at this moment. As you would know, this would be a commercial transaction, that we will use our brokers to help us and our international partners to help us to place. Obviously, we want to continue our framework for natural disaster risk financing, and we are moving aggressively to ensure that we replenish and get new instruments as well to deal with emerging disasters.
Well, Minister, I didn't ask for the achieved. I said, what's the targeted? What is the targeted coverage?
And I am saying to you, we cannot tell you the amount.
Okay.
Minister,
We can't tell you the amount. It's a commercial
right.
transaction.
Minister,
it's a negotiated
Minister, he
transaction.
probably just needed an estimated rate that was applied.
No,
for
it's not the rate I
what?
asked, no.
No,
It's
it's
the
asking
coverage.
about
What
the
is the
amount.
targeted?
Full
But I'll
coverage,
move on.
dollar
I'll
value
move on.
coverage you're asking the
Yes,
Minister?
I was saying.
Oh, I thought you just wanted to know what was the percentage used for her estimated cost calculation. So, Minister, perfect response. Next.
On that note, I will just thank the Minister and thank the Chair. Thank you.
Oh, you're finished? Oh. Good intervention. So in respect of Member Crawford, we will come back in the calculations for the tourism revenues. That's one of the things that will come back. Were you comfortable with? Yes, I think you are comfortable with that. The one that I think, and are you comfortable? So, Minister, you have nothing to come back to the members in respect of. Next question. Who's next now? Member Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I want to just move quickly to the same revenue measures, specifically as it relates to the proposed general consumption tax on digital services, Minister. And I see where in the fourth quarter you expect to earn 300 million. Could you advise us what are the digital components that are expected to be have the application of the GCT?
All right, member, you will note that the estimate of 300 million is quite low, and that is because it requires us to do quite a bit of work to get there, and that's why we're not overly estimating our intake in the upcoming fiscal year. We are working with the OECD. We're working with their framework because there's a lot that you have to put in place. We're looking at the experience of other countries. There are several countries that have instituted this. And in terms of the components of it, I wouldn't be able to list all of those today. I wouldn't be able to list those at all. As we do the work and as we get closer to implementation, we will speak more about that.
All right, thank you, Minister. But that 300 million, I don't think you pulled it from a hat. So it must have been grounded in something. So what are those possible? We heard about streaming services. So there's a figure that is there that has been put forward, right? So I understand that you may be continuing to work through, but we hear issues of streaming services, ChatGPT, Netflix. So I'm asking specifically, what is that 300 million so far grounded in? Chairman, can you allow the... Yes, Minister.
Sure. Well, I'll just repeat what I said to you. In putting together what constitute digital services, we are working with the OECD, was that experience working with other countries on this to get to implementation of it. We will make decisions along the way. It would be premature for us to put those items out there now. We've looked at the experience of countries. We've seen where they started and how they ramped up. And those are the guidelines that we've been using. And as again, I say to you, our estimate is not overly optimistic because of the work we're going to have to do in the upcoming tax year in order to get to implementation.
Yeah, I hear that.
Member, next, because this revenue is all the way in fourth quarter, and for the very first time in our history, we are able to read revenue measures that give us some detailed understanding of the basis forming the revenue estimates. Minister, we have never had this before in our history. So let's move on from that question and move to the next one. Your bank went off? Lord. Press it back on for me, please, Member Brown. How come? No, they don't have to. Something is wrong, Member Brown. It's not picking up any. Turn off everything. Member Brown, turn yours off as well. It's not picking up anybody's mic.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. All right. The final question I have around that is the issue of how is it proposed. And I hear, Minister, that it is going to be, we are still contemplating and working out the mechanics around the, Minister Mackenzie, just hold on a minute. How is it proposed? Is there any initial consideration, since this has been placed in the estimates in terms of the revenue measures? How is it proposed, Minister, to actually collect these taxes?
Member, again, I can say to you, the most efficient way to calculate would be at source, but again, it requires quite a bit of work on our part, working with our international partner who has helped many countries to put this system into effect. The details of it will become known. Just allow us to work through that process, and maybe at another meeting of Parliament or a committee meeting like this one, we can tell you the details of it.
All right, thank you, Minister. I mean, a lot of our companies are, in terms of their planning, are waiting on the government for clarity. So I urge the Minister and the team to have that clarification in short order.
So that's why we're not implementing it on day one. We're allowing time for this, for companies to ask us questions, and as we work along, we'll be working with the companies.
Thank you.
This seems like Member Hilton. That's your Member Hilton.
Thank you. Minister, I think we can agree that the 1948 Customs Act is badly, urgently in need of reform. 2020, the legislation was brought here. This is 2026. When are we likely to see the implementation of that legislation?
It will be coming back to Parliament this fiscal year because there are a number of amendments that were proposed when it went to the Senate.
It is 5 years, 6 years ago.
And given the intervening election, we have to take it back again through some parts of the process. But I am motivated and committed to ensuring that it comes to the Parliament during this upcoming fiscal year.
Member Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, I look at your policy paper and I have a few questions. First one is you have revised inflation, but you have not revised the 2024 poverty rate, which stands at 7.8%. The global projected rate is 3.3% in fiscal year 26-27 and 3.2% in the following year. What would inform...
Member Gordon, I don't think we heard you properly. Revise poverty or property rate? What did you say?
Poverty rate.
Poverty rate.
Yeah. So what would have informed that minister that you revised inflation, but you have not said anything about the revision of the poverty rate?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Because you started out with inflation and then you...
Inflation is revised, okay? From the 2024, but I have not seen anything, any revision for the poverty rate, which stood at 7.8% in 2024.
Yeah, the survey of living conditions has to be updated,
Poverty.
Right? Yeah, we haven't laid that in. So remember, there is a survey process to establish the poverty rate. Whenever that report is completed, it will be published and or tabled in Parliament.
I don't hear a word. Madam Chair, I didn't hear a word the minister said.
The minister said
I'm saying, member, that the survey that looks at the poverty rate in Jamaica happens, and I believe it happens every 2 years. Right, so as far as I know, the latest report is not ready yet, but I know as soon as it is ready, it is published. But suffice it to say, when you look at the history of that number that measures poverty rates, we are at the lowest level that we have seen in Jamaica because of the policies of this government. We have seen poverty levels, decline by about 50%. Cut in half.
Nice cheerleader. Minister.
Members, allow Member Gordon to complete his questions.
You have projected economic growth of 1% in fiscal year 28-29. This budget does not inspire confidence in terms of growth, our growth strategy. If we are to maintain that poverty percentage, then it has to be led by growth. And I'm seeing nothing here that would suggest that there's any strategy for growth. What then, Minister, would inform you reducing the projected growth rate in 2029 as against fiscal year 26-27, 27-28, and you project 1%?
All right. So, member, if you look at the upcoming fiscal year, some recovery is built into that, and we've seen that pattern as we go through periods of disaster. We saw it going through COVID, where GDP was depressed during the COVID years, and as soon as we exited that pandemic, you saw the growth rates accelerate. We've seen it through Hurricane Beryl, a decline in the growth rate in the aftermath, and then shortly thereafter you see the recovery, and you will see this similar pattern following Melissa. This is a devastating hurricane, but we are fully expecting to begin to see positive growth again shortly. As a result of the work of this government, the quick get up and go of this government, Jamaica is being lauded for its efforts, its quick response following the devastation of Hurricane Melissa. And you will see those growth rates during the quarter. As we look into the future, we know that we go through hurricane cycles. We have to deal with those. We don't know what else is going to hit us. And so as we project, our stance has been really to be conservative with our projections of growth.
Minister, I'm still fixated on growth. There's no way we can sustain our fiscal policy and your projection with 1% growth. What is your strategy to grow the economy to achieve the 4 to 7% that you're proposing?
The minister just asked me if there was a question there.
Member,
if she hasn't heard a question, I suggest that she doesn't answer.
So, but let me clarify. Let me clarify, member. I think you said this was a negotiated benefit, and I just want to clarify that as far as I'm being told at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, it is not a negotiated benefit.
Can we now take the headings?
Huh? They will put them. I have to turn this off, turn this off. Let me. It's been started 11,000. Okay. Okay.
Chair, you could put head 20,000, Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. We're going to come to those. Hold on. Yes. No, there was a question on the others. So.
We take the headings 20,000 to Ministry of Finance and the Public Service as amended.
Pages 1 to 25.
Pages 1 to 25. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Heading 20,000 C, Ministry of Finance and the Public Service Capital as amended, pages 1 to 19. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Heading 20,011, Accountant General Department, pages 1 to 5. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Head 20,012, Jamaica Custom Agency, pages 1 to 8. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Head to 20,017, Public Debt Servicing Amortization, pages 1 to 6. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Head 20,018, Public Debt Service Interest Payment, pages 1 to 9. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Head 20,019, Pensions, pages 1 to 9. Those in favor? The ayes have it. Those against, sorry. The ayes have it. Head 20,056, Tax Administration, Jamaica, pages 1 to 5. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Head 20,060, Financial Investigations Division, pages 1 to 4. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Head 20,061, Revenue Protection Department, pages 1 to 3. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the Minister of Finance and her State Minister will now take head 1,000, head 2,000, and head 16,000. I know the technical support teams are already in the House, so there may just be a little movement around. I know Member Jackson had indicated that he had a question in relation to 1,600. So the members can ask question on these three heads now. 16,000, sir. And Chair, let us just to formally thank the technical team from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service.
Xavier. Oh, I'm on mic, so we can't trouble you. No, I remember. Last I'm not over $3,000 plus margin. Mr. Chairman, I need the protection of the JDF. You know, you used to vote for me. When you were well behaved, you used to vote for me, you know. He used to be in my constituency and was well behaved at the time. But since him leaving, get out of hand.
Hello there.
Juliet, you used to live in Marine Park. You used to live in Marine Park. Them time you used to vote for me. I used to come make demands on me as my voter.
Right, work next year. Work for.
You misbehave. You're terrible. Both roads, back and front of you. Yes, all the way to the bypass. Yeah, man. No, from the Texaco station, Brayton, it goes all the way back to the bypass. Calumet, Grace. Yeah. It's not because you never vote for me that I'm trying to penalize you, you know. But you give me a thought. You give me a thought. They done. And then Panta Pike will cost me out. But Juliet, the other one too, the one at the front, Bernard Lodge Road, go back to Spanish Town. But that is incidental. They're going to detour from Marine Park section to go around there. So I'm trying to get them to bring it over back to Newland Road. So I'm looking for your support. And that of Mayor Mackenzie. Minister Mackenzie, I'm looking for your support. So that the minister behind you can drive safely going home. And if it don't happen, it's because you never contributed to her getting home safely. Big shot.
Who are you? I'm not sitting on. Oh, who's doing that? PM. PM? Yes, sir. And cabinet. But nobody cabinet party number. Yeah, and you're not the one of the this everything. No, they're open. Sure, they're open. Yeah, how are you? They didn't cabinet, no. Cabinet, no. I'm gonna have to go in. Cabinet, how are you? I am here, but I don't know. Well, no. Should have never bought no on them. Because of the PM Ministry of Finance is still here. Yeah? Yeah. That's the other man. Some get a phone, you get a oh. You are the cabinet? And then what? Then you are going to OBM? Oh, you can know. Yeah. This is your brief. This is your brief, Minister. Okay, this is your. Yeah.
Afghan, those are all the briefs?
Yeah. Okay.
Can't open the thing. Yes, because I was focusing on
Probably I should go.
Huh?
Oh, God. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to pull up this document and I can't. I can't pull up the document. Oh, sorry. I can't pull up the document. No, there's a brief. A brief. I wonder if this is the same thing.
So, Chair, we are going to go into the Governor General, the Houses of Parliament, and the Office of the Cabinet. So, if there are technical, and the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Office of the Prime Minister. So, if there are technical persons here from those entities, can make your way to the middle. I think a number of them are seated now. So, this is the Governor General, head number 1000. The head number 2000, which is the Houses of Parliament, head number 16,000, the Office of the Cabinet, and head number 15,000, the Office of the Prime Minister. I come speak to him. It was taken under the Ministry of Finance. Yes, it was. It was. It wasn't?
You will ask for a recommittal?
Was. Okay. All right, we're gonna.
Sorry.
Minister.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. All right.
Thank you.
Sir, Minister, there's a point of clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The House Leader mentioned 1,500. Are we going to have the other two ministers?
15,000.
15,000, sorry. Minister Marks and Minister Wheatley after?
We're traveling.
No.
But they're at for now.
No, so the Minister of Finance will marshal all of those sections. The two ministers are on government business.
So we will raise those questions to her. Okay.
If you have it.
Ask if she has been briefed.
All right.
Minister, you may proceed.
Yeah, all right. Well, let me just provide a rundown of the different entities as listed by the chairman, starting with His Excellency the Governor General and staff. The budget for the new fiscal year is 752.2 million. For the Houses of Parliament, it's 2.568 billion. For the Office of the Public Defender, it's 394.8 million. For the Office of the Auditor General, the budget there is 1.6 billion. For the Office of the Services Commission, and you know that there are 4 services commissions there. That budget is 618.6 million. Office of the Children's Advocate has a budget of 596.3 million. The Independent Commission of Investigations has a budget of 1.467 billion. The Integrity Commission has a budget of 1.9 billion. The Independent Fiscal Commission has a budget of 412.4 million. Then we get to the Office of the Prime Minister. The budget there is 67.575 billion. The departments in the Office of the Prime Minister are the Post and Telecommunications Department with a budget of 4.548 billion. NARO, which is the National Identification and Registration Authority, has a budget of 1.5 billion. Office of the Cabinet has a budget of 517.864 million. MIND, which is the Management Institute for National Development, has part of its budget from the Ministry of Finance of 358.946 million, but it also gets a part of it AIA, primarily from fees that are paid. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll open it up to questions.
Member Warmington.
Mr. Chairman, through you, the 2000, I think it was not 2000, the 5,000 officer, the Auditor General. When will the audit report on the Office of the Auditor General be laid in this House? It's a perennial question. I keep on asking it each year. The last time was laid with Minister Clark, the first time since I've been in this House from 1980, come back 2002, and I've been asking all ministers of finance, and for once it was laid by Minister Clark. I was told last year that it would be laid that year, that financial year. We are not going to a new financial year, and I haven't seen it laid in Parliament. I asked the question repeatedly before, who audits the Auditor General? Then it reached the point I asked, when are we going to get that audit report in that department? I see that this year, the department is getting $1.6 billion. And every department or agency or ministry that receives taxpayers' funding is obliged and must be audited, and that report laid in this House. Where or when will we see a current audited financial statement or audit report on that department? Madam Minister?
By April of this year, we are expected to complete that report.
Did you turn my mic off? It's come back on now. No, Madam Minister, you said by April this year the audit will be completed. I got almost a similar question last year. The question I asked, when will we see the auditor financial statement that is required laid in this House? I got the same answer last year, and I haven't seen it throughout the entire year. I'm asking now, when will we see the audited report?
So, member, I am advised that the audit has been completed, and so it should be presented in the House by April.
Oh, different business now. Thank you.
Member Brown.
Thank you very much.
Year outstanding. There are several years outstanding. For what year? Which are the periods will be? Can you tell me?
I'll get that answer for you before the
Thank you. Thank you.
Member Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be asking some questions around 15,000. I'm a little bit disappointed that both Minister Marks and Minister Wheatley are not here. So I hope that the Minister of Finance herself is fully briefed. All right, I'm going to 15,000 C2 on the issue of the implementation of the NIDS, National Identification System for Economic Growth, NIDS. Can the minister confirm the duration of the original duration of the project?
All right, member, if you go to 15,000 C2
yes,
and look at item 5, you will see the original duration, February 2018 to February 2024, and then the extensions are there. So it's supposed to end February 2027.
Thank you, Minister. Can you also confirm what was the original budget of NIDS?
It's right on that page as well. If you look at the very first
I think
line of
it's
numbers,
on 15,000 C, not the same page.
It's right on 1500 C. That's true. At the top, you will see the budget.
And what is the overall budget, Minister?
1 looks like 1.3. Hold on.
I'm not sure if that is correct.
Hold on.
I'm seeing a budget. I don't know if the technocrats can help.
All right, I'll have to get that answer for you. But I'm looking here at the blue book. It only.
All right. I'm seeing here, and I don't know if the technocrats behind you can help you, Minister, and that's why I'm a little bit concerned that the minister's responsibility is not here. I'm seeing an overall on 15,000 C3 total estimated cost for the project needs of 8.825 billion. Can that be confirmed, Minister?
All right, so member, you're correct in terms of the figure that's there, the 8.8 billion Jamaican dollars. And you'll see the split between what was provided by government versus external loan. So that's the correct figure that's there for the initial total estimated cost.
Thank you, Minister. And finally, for 26-27, so we are confirming that the overall budget is 8.8 billion for the NIDS project. And for what is proposed for 26-27 is 1.86 billion. Is that correct, Minister?
Yes, and that's because the project is coming to an end shortly.
All right. So, with those figures, would you say that the planned expenditure, Minister, of 1.8 billion for NIDS for this proposed financial year, as shown in 15,000 C2, would see we overrunning the budget by some 600 million Jamaican dollars?
Can you clarify, please?
All right. So if you turn with me to 15,000 C3, the cumulative spend on the NIDS project to date, which was started in 2018 and is continuing with the 2 extensions that we have outlined. The 15,000 C3 indicates that 7.5 billion has been cumulatively expended so far on the project. You are now proposing, and as you have confirmed on 15,000 C2, that you are proposing, the ministry is proposing an additional 1.8. So if you are to add the 1.8 to that 7.5, I think we would be at 9.3 billion, and the original budget is 8.8. So my question is, would we see us having an overrun on the NIDS budget by some $600 million?
I wouldn't be able to say that because many times with these projects along the way.
But Minister, the numbers are there. I'm asking you to confirm. That's why I ask you to.
No, but hold on. I can't confirm because I'm explaining to you with projects that may, at the end of it, they may have a figure, a sum that's greater than where they started or what they projected to be. But that's not because necessarily of cost overrun because of anything, but during the process, prices may have changed on the goods and services that they have to procure. This is a massive IT project requiring, lots of people with the requisite skills. It requires implementation across the length and breadth of Jamaica. I know that they've been upgrading post offices to ensure that they can serve as NIDS intake, right, to register. So I wouldn't be able to say that just looking at the numbers right here.
Well, Minister, the numbers are what we have to look on based on what you and the government is presenting to us now. So that's what we are looking on. So as it stands now, we are seeing a projection of an overrun by some $600 million.
All right, but I'm saying to you, I would have to get the details of what it was spent on. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Okay. All right, member, I have greater clarity. The project lead said there is no cost overrun. The project that was priced initially, it was priced at $68 million US, and we are not over that. What you are noticing, some of the difference that you're noticing is the difference in the exchange rate because this was priced in US dollars, but we're reporting on it in Jamaican dollars.
All right. Thank you for that, Minister. The cumulative expenditure, and I'm on 15,000 C3 still. Based on the document before us and the estimates, the cumulative expenditure from the external component is 7.5 billion, sorry. And we have expended in terms of up to December 25, 7.6. So we have basically received by and large all of the external funding. Again, I'm asking, how are we proposing to fund what is proposed for 26-27 based on the fact that the external component is ended and we are seeing a projected overrun based on the numbers presented before us? Well, if it varies, a negative. Yeah.
The original cost of the project is $68 million US. I am reliably informed by the project manager that the project has not exceeded $68 million US.
All right. Thank you for that. As I said, Minister, we are looking on what the numbers say here. In terms of the various extensions that we have had, the project has had 2 extensions. In terms of what is proposed for 26-27 is actually a 3rd extension. Can the Minister advance us what are some of the reasons for the delays that require those extensions?
As a point of correction, member, there's only been 2 extensions. One between February 2024 and February 26,
yes,
2026, and one.
This is the second, yes.
Right, this is the second one, but I thought you said differently. The reasons for the delays in terms of the timeline has to do with construction, but that part of it, that component of it, is expected to be completed by February 2027. To date, the systems have been completed. People can register for their ID. You can sign up, and there's been significant improvement in terms of the government's data center and the IT infrastructure to support this.
All right, so with no additional estimates proposed for 27, 28, 28, 29, Minister, do you believe that this further extension, as you are presenting in 26, 27, will sufficiently allow the government to complete all the unfinished integrations to finally have us going live at the end of this fiscal year? The Minister, wait your turn, Nestor.
So, member, the system is already live and you can register and get your NIDS ID. It's already live. What's happening in this final year is the push to expand and scale up across Jamaica. So it's live. You can get your national ID.
All right, Desmond. Thank you for that, Minister. In terms of the integration, Minister, In terms of the integration, you're saying that it is already live. The last time I checked, in terms of the use of NIDS to identify and authenticate identity, the process is still in testing with the commercial banks, still in testing with several other critical financial institutions. So going live, yes, somebody can get an ID, but the ultimate purpose of using that document to identify and verify your identity, that has not gone live. So that's what I'm referring to. When will NIDS finally go live?
All right, so I'm advised that I should inform you not to confuse the NIDS with the data exchange platform being implemented by the ICT authority, and that data exchange platform is to ensure the interface between the government and the private sector. So that is at work, that is being implemented currently. So, you know, don't conflate that with the NIDS ID and your ability to be able to register and get your NIDS ID. That is already live, and it's being expanded and scaled up across Jamaica.
Thank you for that, Minister. Minister, I don't think I'm conflating or confusing. The purpose of the NIDS ID is to allow a Jamaican to enter into a financial institution and use that document to validate their identity. The financial institution, one of the main purposes, the financial institutions have not yet been integrated into NIDS. So that is the clarity I'm seeking. When can someone turn up at a commercial bank with that NIDS ID and utilize that ID to identify and authenticate their identity?
All right, so remember, there will be there will need to be some building out on the part of the financial institution of what's called the JDXP. They are currently testing this. They have been given the authority, is that what you said? Access. They've been given access to what's called the sandbox in order for them to understand this infrastructure and to be able to integrate it to their own infrastructure. So that's what's happening right now between government and the financial sector in order for them to fully utilize the NIDS ID when somebody shows up with it, because it's not just a matter of looking at an ID and a picture. It goes far, far more than that.
And that's very clear.
To be able to authenticate the person in front of you.
Thank you for that, Minister, because you were earlier indicating as if I was mixing up the things. So they are still in sandbox. And until
the platform, not the ID, but the platform that will be used, the data exchange platform that will be used by the financial sector and all of government. So that's what's being implemented right now.
All right, thank you. All right, Minister, I want to turn again. I'm going to be looking on the issue of the Postal Corporation of Jamaica. Again, the Minister is not here, and I'm hoping that you are properly briefed on that. I'm using the public bodies, probably should I allow the Postmaster General to come to join us. All right.
Oh,
All right, can I proceed now, Chairman? Minister?
all right.
So I'm looking at the
Okay, you
Jamaica
said
Public Bodies,
Okay, all
page
right.
22 through to page 26, where the Postal Corporation of Jamaica's estimates are situated. You know, I noticed that the body is operating at a deficit, and it's projected to reduce that deficit come this year. I'm looking at the operating expenses on page 23. Could you, Minister, how many post offices did we currently have prior to Melissa in Jamaica?
238 post offices.
238. Thank you for that. And I saw where Melissa, Minister, would have done significant damages to quite a few. How many do we now have operational since the onset of Hurricane Melissa?
About 218 are operational.
218, so 20 are now out of 20 are now out of. All right, thank you, Minister Mackenzie. Specifically, Minister, can you tell us of that 20, in terms of how many have had their services relocated? I mean, I saw where, for example, the member from Eastern Westmoreland, I think, is at lunch, but the residents from Darliston, I'm seeing now journey to Ramble. So can you tell us some of what's happening in terms of those 20 movements and what is happening in terms of the services being delivered there? Roehampton goes to Reading.
All right, so member, Darliston has been restored. Reading has not yet been restored. Reading not relocated. Some of those that are relocated, obviously they're looking to ensure that they come back to the original location where they were. But Darliston has been restored. Reading has not been relocated.
All right, so of the 20 that have been closed, about how many remain in terms of overall operations? You mentioned just Darliston, you mentioned Reading, but walk us through what's happening overall, if you can get the effect, because I'm looking at the services, the distance, and the inconvenience. Allow us to ask the question. All right, there's
The distress being faced by the public demands a greater investment.
Plus, they're going to earn millions from this.
all right, Minister. I know that one is caused a little too. In terms of the damages, Minister, I'm looking on page 25 of the document, and I see a provision for repair and maintenance. Can you state an overall estimate of the damages caused by Melissa to the infrastructure in terms of the buildings?
Okay, member, I am informed that the number that you're looking at for repairs and maintenance is truly not adequate.
Okay.
There's a greater need for more than what is written in the book here.
So there's a greater need for more, but you don't have a specific figure to advise us as to what the overall damage is. You don't, Minister?
So, member, I know we have a lot of post offices across Jamaica. Many of them are going to be outlets for the NIDS ID, and so they will see some renovation to them. I don't know the numbers. The others have suffered, some of them have suffered damage, significant in some cases, forcing them to be relocated. But I know that the Postal Corporation of Jamaica is working to ensure that communities are not inconvenienced. And in fact, I'm told that communities are being served, but they're being served from different locations. But there is a recognition that more needs to be done on repairs and maintenance across the post offices.
Thank you for that, Minister. So in light of that and your admission that more needs to be done, I've been searching to see if there's any capital expenditure proposed, particularly as it relates to those that would have been closed down and locked down. So I'm searching and I'm not finding any. So there's none, Minister.
It would be under repairs and maintenance, because that's a recurring.
And you're saying that figure is, you're admitting that is wholly.
So the figure that's in the budget book is what has been allocated. Below that, they do have some capital expenditure for furniture and fixtures, computer equipment and software, and other. But the repairs and maintenance is as indicated in the budget book.
Member Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Two quick questions. Minister, first on. Oh, sorry.
The floor was given to Member Jackson because Member Brown would have asked an amount of question. No, I am just giving other persons a chance to ask a question and then come back to Member Brown.
We're not in a hurry.
So you don't want it?
You making answer line quick.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. Just allow me to answer a question that was posed by a member. I've just got the information. And this relates to the audit of the Auditor General. The 2023-24 audit was already tabled.
I'm not hearing the Minister, sorry.
The 2023-2024 audit was already tabled, and the 2024-25 is underway. The appropriations account for Auditor General's department, which were tabled, go all the way back to 2018-19, 2019-20, 2020-21, 2021-22, 22-23, 23-24, and the Auditor General is currently doing the 24-25 audit, the appropriations account for the Auditor General's department. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I don't know. That question was, that answer was for me. I'm not sure.
No,
All right.
sorry, no, not for you, sorry. I was just giving the answer to a question that was asked earlier on.
Oh,
I just
okay.
got the information.
Okay.
too.
All right. So I'm wrapping up. So there's no, you admitted that there's no provision. The repairs and maintenance on page 23 is wholly inadequate. There's no capital budget. Minister, with the absence of a capital budget and the entity running at a deficit, the entity is projecting and up to 20 post offices are now out of operation. I'm seeing an increase in commercial services revenue to 276 from 232. What is the basis for that, based on the realities of reduced facilities in terms of the operations of the Postal Corporation of Jamaica? So,
Member, the Postal Corporation of Jamaica has indicated that for the 2026-27, the increase in their commercial revenues is as a result of recovery of revenues from the fall off they experienced during 2025-26 due to the impact of Melissa. And also, they're indicating that there are measures in those numbers to drive increase in mail delivery services.
all right. Finally, Minister, there is no capital budget, and you admitted that there is less than ought to have been allocation for repairs and maintenance. We have about 20, based on your numbers, post offices out of operation. What is the reopening schedule that you can share to those the affected Jamaicans as it relates to their post offices and the operations going forward? Is there a reopening schedule that you have that can be outlined? Because surely there is not the intention to remove that service from those citizens. So is there a reopening schedule that can be shared for those operations that are not functioning at the moment?
Okay, member?
Yes.
I'm told that the other post office will be opened on, the other post offices will be opened on a phased basis. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that with regards to spending for the post offices here on the Postal Corporation, that there is 140 million in the budget of PTD to help with these capital spending.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Minister.
Member Jackson.
Yeah, thank you. Two quick questions. Minister, on page 3002, the public defender. Just glancing on the recurrent expenses, and I see some decline. Normally the recurrence for inflation and so on, you see them either holding steady or decreasing. Executive direction and administration, there's a decline. For 26-27, I saw in 25-26, it was 207 million. It was revised up in the supplementary, but it came back down. Could you just explain what caused those changes there, Minister? In fact, I see it remaining flat if you exclude the revision in late 25-26. Page 3002.
All right, member, in the numbers for the current financial year, 2025-26 versus the 2026-27, in this 2025-26 year, there's some one-offs for relocation, for refurbishing, public education, and so on, that will not be repeated in the new fiscal year.
Following year. Okay, fine. The other one I have is on 16,012,322 activity. The national security policy administration is covered here. There's a $51 million for the year.
Sorry, can you repeat the page?
16,004.
All right.
Just for clarification and probably more information, Minister, the national security policy, my understanding is that the National Security Advisor Office, which is housed in the Cabinet Office, it resides there. So correct me if I'm wrong. My question is, since the previous Commissioner of Police demitted that position of National Security Advisor, there has not been any being appointed to my knowledge. So I'm just curious in terms of what the compensation provisions are for, and if there is anyone in place who is driving that activity at that section I made mention of. The budget is there, but I don't know about its execution.
I understand that someone was acting in the post, but they went away on a one-year scholarship, and so there is activity around filling that post. So I would imagine that in short order, someone will occupy that post.
But you said the person went and leave, and somebody was or
the person was
is
seconded.
acting.
The person was seconded from another agency.
Sorry, the person was seconded out of the office
The person was seconded from another agency to act in
to
the
act
office.
there.
Right.
Okay. Any idea how long that acting is to go for?
But they, the person.
No, people act for a specified period.
Right, but the person who was acting went.
Sorry, Minister, I can't hear the answer. There's a lot of noise on the other side.
The person who was acting was seconded from another part of government. That person has decided to go off on a one-year scholarship and there will be a recruitment drive to fill that position.
Madam Minister, my reason for asking, these are very important functions. And yes, personnel will move from time to time for various reasons. When someone is seconded from an office or to an office, it's for some specified period. Now it might change, but at least at some point in time, the information must be there. There's no mystery about that. So my question is simply for the secondment exercise, what is the duration? And that I ask the question to get a sense of the continuity of the office and its function.
The office is continuing, and as said earlier on, they are looking for someone to fill that position.
Oh, so the recruitment is now going on to fill the position of National Security Advisor.
Right, which is what, as was stated earlier on.
I just want to be clear. That was the extent of my question on that, madam. Thank you, Minister. Tell you.
Member Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reference page 23 of the public bodies, and I look at the income statement, whereas salary paid is in the range of 73%, despite having a net loss for a consecutive fiscal period. My question to the minister is, could you explain how efficient that department is being run to ratchet up 3 consecutive fiscal year of deficit, and your salary seems to be growing? In addition to that, your services seems to be declining in terms of cost.
All right. The history is the staff was expanded to increase the services. However, when they went through the compensation review, salaries increased. That caused them to be running at a deficit. So the focus is on expanding the services in order to be able to deliver better revenues.
The member is asking that to speak up somewhat because he's not hearing the answer.
Right. So member, the staff was expanded to increase the services. However, they went through the compensation restructuring exercise, and that caused an increase in the compensation. They are reviewing their service, the different services that they offer, in order to expand those. And on page 22, you'll see some of the services they offer. They'd like to strengthen their zip mail, new business day delivery service to increase capital investment. They want to focus on marketing initiatives, enhance their network connectivity, improve customer service support. A number of items listed here that they will be working on to address the revenue side of the equation.
Minister, on the revenue side, there's no provision for any other income in 2025, 2026. What would have precipitated that, since there was significant amount of revenue in 24, 25?
As soon as I get the answer, I will let you know.
Okay.
Because that happened back in fiscal 2024-25.
So I will ask another question. Your net loss in your foreign exchange, how would that impact your interest income? In other words, are you trading in US dollars denomination, or do we trade in local denomination?
The trade is in local Jamaican dollars.
So what would have influenced the foreign exchange loss?
I'm checking their balance sheet to see if they have some US dollar investment. Okay, it was a gain in that year from US dollar investment. Remember, it was a gain from US dollars investment.
While I await the answer about the other income, the other expenses, Minister, in 24-25 was significant, and a steady decline in 25-26 and slight appreciation in 26-27. What constitute other expenses, and what would have caused that approximately 60% decline in 25-26 and slight appreciation in 26-27?
All right. Remember, other expenses came from non-core. Are you sorry? Remember, were you referring to other? Well, no, it's other expenses, right?
Yes.
Remember, other
Yes.
expenses. Yeah.
Minister, I'm really zooming in on the net operating loss and the reduction in 25-26 when compared to 24-25. That's almost a 60%.
Right.
Variance.
Well, remember, if you look at the fact that their total income went up, then that explains why that net loss went down.
No, that's not the question I asked, Minister. Let me rephrase. Other expenses in fiscal year 24-25 was 34.19. When you look at your estimate for 25-26, it was revised down to 12.64. Notwithstanding that, you still end up with a deficit of 90.65.
All right. So remember, a deficit is as a result of your expenses being greater than your revenue. And if you look at fiscal year 2025-26, you will see that revenues declined. And it was in that year that we had the Category 5 hurricane. So that explains why revenues decline. And you're right, approximately 30 post offices were impacted. Whereas on the operating expense side, those expenses are sticky, as you know, as a businessman, that you can't necessarily move your expenses in line with a decline in your revenues, and hence the increase in the loss that the entity experienced in fiscal year 2025-26. But as you can see, they're projected to recover. Total income is projected to recover to 300.55 million from 257.89. That will allow them to even reduce further the deficit that they have. With regards to the other expenses, your question as to why other expenses went from 34 million to 12.6 million, 13 million. It's as a result of cost containment, and you can see if your revenues decline as much as it did in 2025-26, why business people may take some action where they can to reduce expenses.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that the questions were adequately answered, but I'll yield my time.
Perfectly answered.
Member Miller Bennett.
Minister, I'm still at page 23. Earlier, you mentioned the projected income to recover is about 40 million. What are the measures to close to adequately address this $40 million that's in revenue? What are the measures?
Member, if you look at page 22, right beside that, you will see a summary of the operational plan through program of strategic intervention, including the adoption of new technologies, modern work methods, and revised operating strategies. The Post Corp will continue its efforts to modernize the postal service and deliver increased value to businesses, organizations, and individuals. These initiatives are aimed at preserving the relevance, efficiency, affordability, flexibility, and overall attractiveness of the postal system, with an evolving technological environment, within an evolving technological environment. And so for the upcoming fiscal year, PostCorp will focus on the following key priorities. They will conduct ICT case study to identify modernization opportunities. They will strengthen their zip mail next business day delivery service. They will engage in marketing initiatives. They'll ensure that their network connectivity is improved. They will improve customer service support. All of that, all of those things that I'm listing is to enable them to deliver the services, but also to deliver it in, in a way that they can generate less losses and they can get to a profit bottom line.
Yes, Minister. I also noticed the upgrade of the tracking system and conducting a needs assessment for the National Digital Addressing System. I'm assuming that these come at a cost, but I'm not seeing where that is captured. So probably you can point me to the line item. And I'm new, so I'm asking these questions. I'm new to the budget process, so I'm asking these questions. Yes. But they're not capturing. No, we knew, so that's why I ask.
Member, I understand that the tracking system, upgrade of the tracking system to enhance system architecture and expand usability, that's an internal system that they already have, that they would be working on to expand. And so there's not necessarily a significant increase in spending to do that.
The needs assessment also will be an internal process and does not come at a cost?
So remember as well, member, that the national ID is working through our different post offices to renovate and to put in systems to increase and improve customer service and so on. And some of these locations will benefit from the efforts of scaling up our national ID efforts.
Very well. You're also increasing marketing initiatives and increase capital investment. I'm not seeing where it's captured here in this budget. In a fair budget, I'm talking about. In a fair budget,
Member, the entity is not expecting for there to be a separate line item costs for that, because it's the same staff that you will be using for some of these improved service delivery initiatives.
Minister, I'm so guided to where would it be captured in the budget? In your budget, Minister? That capital expenditure.
That captures what? I'm sorry?
Where in the budget would that be captured? I'm so guided.
I'm sorry, what exactly?
The investment in capital for the Post Corporation. Or is it that it's not captured in this period?
That would be
capital account. Expenditure. Yeah, okay, all right. Okay. All right, remember, if you turn the page to page 24, and you look at item 6, capital account, and go down, you will